Hey everyone, Grant K for the Flame Learning channel. In the preceding videos, we've been talking a lot about physical-based rendering. We've looked at the PBR shader model in Flame, as well as used PBS maps to customize the textures that we're using. However, in all the past scenarios, we have supplied a texture or created a texture map in Flame to get to the final look. In this video, we take another step forward and look at Substance PBR. Substance PBR are procedurally based textures that can work within the physical-based shading model. So if you don't have a texture and don't have time to manually create your own, you can use procedurally generated textures to quickly generate a texture that can be used on any 3D objects in the composites. Special thanks to turbosquid.com for the model being used in this video. You can purchase this model and many others by signing up to their website. So I have a few action setups to show you the flexibility of Substance PBR textures. Inside the first action setup, I have the robot, which is currently not textured. There is already an IBL and a light for shading, and there are also some camera effects and a shadow caster which are currently disabled. Now let's start texturing the components of the model with PBR textures. We'll navigate the action schematic and select the chrome geometry. Switch to the action node bin and choose the Maps tab. Here you will find the Substance PBR. Note that there is also a Substance texture node, which is also a procedural generator. The general rule is you use Substance PBR for physical-based shading, and you use Substance texture for standard shading. Each shading model in Flame expects certain texture maps to apply the shading. If those texture maps are not present, Flame will use the default values in either the object, material, or shader nodes to display a texture through the various shading models. This will obviously make textures look wrong if used incorrectly. Remember from the previous videos, the physical-based shader pipeline will accept PBS maps as well as a normal map to influence the look of a texture. Now getting back to the Substance PBR workflow, drag out the Substance PBR and we'll be taken to the file browser. The Substance PBR files are sorted into categories, but if you click Scan Subdirectories, you can see all 50 at once, and you can toggle between the titles and proxies view. Now I want to point out that there are no color management options in the file browser compared to importing other assets such as images and 3D geometry. This is because the Substance engine produces a sRGB result. However, whichever Substance PBR you select will be converted to the action working color space to ensure a correct looking result. So if you are working in a color managed project, it's important to have action set to the appropriate working space in order to get the right colors with the Substance PBR. Now we'll select aluminium or aluminum as the first texture. When it loads, it is attached to the selected geometry with quite a few components. First, a shader node is automatically added to enable the physical-based shading pipeline on this geometry. It's worth noting that the shader node parameters are inactive because all the additional PBS maps are driving the shader parameters based on a pixel value. As a tip, if you want to use the shader node parameters with the numeric sliders, just hide the corresponding PBS map. Now the Substance PBR flow graph is connected to the geometry using a material node. But in this case, the only functional operation of the material node is transparency. Beneath that is the Substance PBR object, which has the main texture generation controls for each of the connected PBS maps. As an extra tip, if you wanted to see what the Substance PBR controls are doing to any PBS map, select the respective PBS map, and in the result viewer, press F8 for the object view. So each component of the Substance PBR can be viewed separately or combined if you look at the main result with F4. Now you can turn any of these parameters off by either hiding them or turning them off in the Substance PBR controls. Finally, the PBS maps behave like regular maps in the action composite. The benefit of this is that you could parent them individually to other objects without the main substance node. For example, you might want to add scratches to a material without using all the other aluminium characteristics. The previous videos on PBS maps show these workflows in great detail. Now the Substance PBR texture menu tells us the preset selection, the texture resolution, and PBS map assignment. So you could try different presets as you're performing look development. Next, the Advanced menu contains the specific parameters particular to each Substance PBR texture. So this menu will dynamically update with different parameters for different Substance PBR textures. For example, we'll increase the aluminium roughness of the texture. We could also add more scratches and dirt, as well as change the color of the metal if desired. Now let's go ahead and texture the plastic parts of the robot. Select the geometry in the action schematic. Go to the action node bin and drag out another Substance PBR. In the browser, navigate to the man-made directory. Select the plastic base texture. As before, you can see how the flow graph has built itself for the selected geometry. Now, I don't like the plastic color in my opinion, so go to the Substance PBR Advanced menu and change the color of the plastic to 50% gray. Finally, we're going to texture the remaining head and body of the robot with one Substance PBR texture. In the action schematic, we'll locate the head and body geometry nodes. Hold Ctrl and drag a box selection around the geometry nodes. Go back to the action node bin and drag out a Substance PBR. Go to the metal directory and choose metal car paint. The default color is an intense shade of red, so let's change that. Go to the Substance PBR Advanced menu and click the paint color. Change it to blue. This looks like a nice shiny robot. To make this more interesting, let's make this robot more battle-worn. Set the paint peel to about 0.35. This exposes some of the metal under the paintwork. Now that we can see the exposed metal, we can adjust the metal roughness to taste. Now we could add scratches to the paintwork, but let's flake the paintwork and set the flake scale to 0.1. Switch to a single view and look at the result view. The robot now looks like it's been in a couple of battles. When we orbit the camera, we can see that the Substance PBR textures allow us to create great-looking textures very quickly. Now to complete this example, go back to the action schematic and unhide the camera effects and the shadow caster. When you look back at the action result view, you can see that the combination of a physical-based rendering pipeline, Substance PBR textures, and the Matchbox Camera Effects GLSL shaders can produce very pleasing results. The next example is a quick workflow on producing a glass-like texture using Substance PBR. We'll go back to the batch schematic and select the other action node. If we go into its controls and look at the 2-up view, here we have some extruded 3D text and a blurred background. The first step is to add an IBL to the camera. Select the camera in the action schematic and go to the Action Node Bin menu. In the Maps tab, drag out an IBL. You can use any of the provided IBLs or load one of your own. Now I have intentionally put a shader node on the background to prevent any shading affecting it. Next, hold Ctrl and drag a box selection around the 3D text geometry nodes. Go to the Action Node Bin menu and drag out a Substance PBR. In the file browser, enable Scan Subdirectories and load the glass Substance PBR texture. Now let's start tweaking the look. Double-click the Substance PBR node and switch to the Advanced menu. Set the glass opacity between 0.4 and 0.5. Next, click the color pot and change the color to light gray. So we're definitely getting there, but we are seeing some artifacts in the 3D geometry because of its transparency. Go to the geometry controls of each 3D text object and set the sort mode to sort all. You do not use sort transparency in this case because the 3D text is considered as a single geometry and not comprised of multiple 3D geometries in an object group. Now, since the 3D text is extruded and has depth, we want to emphasize the light interaction with the edges of the glass texture. Double-click on the IBL in the schematic for its controls. Rotate the IBL in X until the light reacts well on the glass texture. So there we have it. Hold Alt and orbit the viewport to see our glass object. This is what you get using the standard glass Substance PBR texture. Now Flame comes installed with 50 Substance PBR textures for you to use and develop. These Substance PBR files originate from a company called Allegorithmic, and they have a product called Substance Designer which produces these amazing procedural textures. You could create your own Substance PBR textures using Substance Designer and load them into the Flame products. In fact, Allegorithmic have set up a few services to offer various resources to the general public. Firstly, there is Substance Database that offers PBR and non-PBR assets as a paid subscription service. Secondly, there is the Substance Source that offers free PBR assets specifically chosen by Allegorithmic. Or finally, you could go to the Substance Share, which is a free user-driven platform for PBR and non-PBR assets. Please be advised that since these textures are made by other Allegorithmic users, they might not be tagged correctly as PBR. They could be a regular Substance texture or a Substance PBR texture. The way you tell the difference is when you load them into Flame. The Substance PBR texture will normally have the PBS maps, including the base color PBS map, etc. So that's what Allegorithmic offers in terms of resources. However, there are many other third-party websites selling Substance assets, and they would all be compatible with the Flame products. A great tip is to look for a game texture marketplace, and you might find a few great assets. Enjoy using the Substance PBR, and happy texturing in Flame. Be sure to check out the other features, workflows, and updates to the Flame 2017 Extension 1 products. Comments, feedback, and suggestions are always welcome and appreciated. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to the Flame Learning channel for future videos.